Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session, Governing Safe and Responsible AI in Public Infrastructure. My name is Zach Lampel. I'm Senior Legal Advisor and Coordinator of Bill of Rights Programming, National Assembly and Expression, and the right to privacy, offline and online. Over the next 55 minutes, we will explore how AI can be deployed in public sector systems safely, responsibly, and inclusively. This includes algorithmic transparency, human-centered governance, regulatory best practices, and lessons from the Global South. This session is convened with the support of the Freedom Online Coalition, a partnership of 41 governments committed to protecting and ensuring that the rights people enjoy offline, like the freedom of expression, the freedom of association, and the right to privacy, are upheld in digital spaces. The coalition advances internet freedoms through multi-stakeholder engagement, diplomatic coordination, and policy advocacy. Within the Freedom Online Coalition, the Task Force of AI and Human Rights brings together states, civil society, academics, and industry to promote rights-respecting AI. The task force coordinates knowledge sharing and develops policy guidance across all regions of the world. It is truly an honor today to be joined by a full set of distinguished, diverse speakers. We'll first hear brief introductory remarks from our distinguished high-level speakers, followed by a panel, and ending or concluding with an audience question and answer session. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome His Excellency Ala Karas, President of the Republic of Estonia. President Karas is a molecular geneticist and developmental biologist, former rector of the University of Tartu, and an internationally recognized academic leader who has guided Estonia's innovation and digital governance initiatives. Mr. President.
Excellencies, Prime Ministers, distinguished colleagues from government, civil society, academia, and the private sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to join you today in India, a country whose ambition and leadership in digital public infrastructure are shaping global conversations about the future of technology, governance, and inclusion. I would like to thank our hosts and the organizers of the India AI Impact Summit for bringing together such a diverse and thoughtful group of participants at a moment when decisions about artificial intelligence are rapidly becoming decisions about democracy itself. The focus of this session, governing safe and responsible AI within digital public infrastructure, is a question many of our societies are grappling with. How to ensure that the increasing use of AI in public systems strengthens trust rather than undermining it. Digital public infrastructure is no longer simply a technical backbone for service delivery. It is a foundation of which modern states operate. When AI systems are embedded into these infrastructures, whether in education, healthcare, social services, justice, or public administration, they shape how decisions are made, how resources are allocated, and how rights are exercised. This creates enormous opportunities to improve efficiency, accessibility, and responsiveness. But it also introduces new risks. When algorithms are opaque, when accountability is unclear, or when systems are designed without meaningful human oversight, public trust can erode quickly. For this reason, algorithmic transparency and responsible governance are not optional additions to digital public infrastructure. They are essential conditions for its legitimacy. Estonia's own experience as a highly digitalized society has taught us that technology alone does not create trust. Trust is built through choices, choices about design, governance, and values. From the very beginning of our digital transformation, we made a deliberate decision that technology must serve people, not the other way around. Today, nearly all public services in Estonia are available digitally, and artificial intelligence is increasingly used to support decision making and improve public services. Yet we remain clear that AI must complement human judgment, not replace it. Public authorities must be able to explain how decisions are made. Citizens must be able to question outcomes, and safeguards must exist to prevent bias, discrimination, or unintended harm. One area where this approach is particularly visible is education. Estonia has long invested in digital education, and today AI literacy is becoming a core part of our educational system. We are introducing AI-supported tools in schools by ensuring transparency, data protection, and pedagogical oversight. Students are taught not only how to use AI, but how to understand it, how algorithms work, where their limits lie, and why critical thinking remains essential. We believe that societies that understand AI are far better equipped to govern it responsibly. This commitment to human-centered and rights-respected digital governance was also central to Estonia's role as chair of a Freedom Online Coalition in 2025. The coalition brings together 42 governments alongside civil society and the private sector to advance human rights online. During Estonia's chairship, we placed a strong focus on digital public infrastructure, recognizing that TPI is where digital rights are increasingly realized in practice. Under Estonia's leadership, the Freedom Online Coalition has developed principles for rights respecting digital public infrastructure, grounded firmly in international human rights law. These principles emphasize transparency and explainability of digital and AI-driven systems, accountability through the life cycle, inclusive design that works for all communities, strong protection for privacy and freedom of expression, and meaningful participation by civil society and affected communities. These are not abstract ideals. They are practical guideposts for policymakers, regulators, and system designers alike. What matters just as much as rules or technologies is how AI is introduced into public systems and how it is experienced by people in their daily lives. In many parts of the world, digital public infrastructure is expanding rapidly and often at significant scale. When systems grow quickly, trust becomes the most valuable, but also the most fragile resource. Experience shows that trust is not built through perfection, but through clarity, responsiveness, and the ability to correct course. People need to know when AI is being used, what its purpose, and where responsibility ultimately lies. When governments are open about these choices and when systems allow for explanation and readiness, confidence in public institutions can grow, even in complex or resource-constrained environments. Responsible AI governance must be collaborative by design. Governments, civil society, academia, and the private sector each see different risks and different possibilities. Bringing these perspectives together is not a luxury, it is a practical necessity. What makes today's discussion especially important is the diversity of perspectives represented here. Countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America are demonstrating new models of inclusion, resilience, and service delivery under complex conditions. These experiences must be represented in global AI governance debates. Estonia is honored to co-facilitate with El Salvador. The General Assembly established the Global Dialogue on AI Governance. The dialogue that provides an inclusive, multi-stakeholder platform for governments, industry, academia, and civil society jointly shape the future of AI governance. By bridging regions and development levels, the dialogue helps contribute that global AI rules promote innovation and growth while remaining anchored in human rights, trust, and shared responsibility. Estonia believes that digital public infrastructure can be both innovative and rights respecting, both efficient and democratic. Achieving requires cooperation across borders and sectors and a shared commitment to keeping people at the center of our digital futures. I look forward to continuing this important work together. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those insightful opening remarks. Next, we are pleased to welcome His Excellency Bernard Meisen, State Secretary and Director of the Federal Office of Communications, Ofcom, in Switzerland, and current chair of the Freedom Online Coalition in 2026. He brings extensive experience in communications regulation, media policy, and advancing human rights-based approaches in digital governance. Your Excellency.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak on a topic at the intersection of digital transformation and the protection of human rights. Digital public infrastructure, such as digital identities, public services, platforms, data systems, and AI-enabled public decision support tools, has become central to how states deliver services and interact with citizens. Its governance must reflect the highest standards of human rights, accountability, inclusivity, and transparency. This is why the Freedom Online Coalition adopted the rights respecting digital public infrastructure principles to ensure DPI promotes public trust and protects fundamental rights that Switzerland fully supports. These principles underscore that technology must serve people, not the other way around. DPIs should be developed through processes that are human-centered, participatory, and responsive to the needs of all communities, including marginalized and vulnerable groups. They must uphold privacy, non-discrimination, and equal access. For AI systems embedded in DPIs, these principles translate into three core imperatives. First, anchored in international human rights law. DPI systems that rely on AI must be built on clear legal basis with defined purposes, robust data governance, and meaningful safeguards against bias and abuse. Human rights impact assessment should not be optional or ex post. They should be an integral part of public sector AI procurement and deployment. Second, accountability and oversight. Public authorities remain responsible for decisions taken or supported by AI, even when systems are developed or operated by private actors. This requires transparency standards, auditability, independent oversight mechanisms, and accessible avenues for redress. Without accountability, trust in digital public infrastructure cannot be sustained. Third, international cooperation and capacity building. Many countries are developing digital public infrastructure under significant resource constraints and with increasing reliance on external vendors. International cooperation is essential to promote interoperable standards and good practices and avoid a global fragmentation of safeguards. In this respect, initiatives such as the AI Summit hosted in India demonstrate the value of convening inclusive, global South-focused discussions on AI governance. By centering development needs, public interest, use cases, and rights-respecting approaches to digital public infrastructure, such forums help bring the global conversation to contexts where DPI is being deployed at scale and where safeguards are most urgently needed. In Switzerland's view, safe and responsible AI governance within DPI requires multi-stakeholder engagement, sustained civil society participation, robust legal frameworks, and international cooperation. Only by aligning AI and DPI governance with human rights principles can we ensure that digital public infrastructures support dignity, equity, and democratic accountability. Switzerland remains committed to advancing these aims within the Freedom Online Coalition and across international fora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those interesting perspectives. From Lithuania, it is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Taramas Valis, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs. He oversees economic diplomacy, trade policy, and international cooperation in digital technologies, and he also serves as the governor on the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He brings deep experience linking technology, economic policy, and international collaboration. Vice Minister.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for Freedom Online Coalition for its continued leadership in promoting an open, secure, and human-centric digital future. Lithuania is honored to contribute to today's discussion on governing safe and responsible AI with a digital public infrastructure. Lithuania's experience shows that responsible AI begins with a strong public sector foundations. Over the past 2 decades, we have built one of the most advanced systems of interoperable state registers in our region, from population and property to business and address registers. These trusted data systems, together with our e-health platform, e-tax administration, qualified e-signature is used by more than 90% of adults, and our e-residency program form the backbone of our digital state. They ensure efficient, transparent public services and provide a solid foundation for AI-driven innovation. Secondly, trust, digital resilience, and cybersecurity are essential. As an EU frontier state facing persistent hybrid threats, Lithuania has made cybersecurity a strategic priority. Our National Cybersecurity Center leads the threat monitoring, incident response, and public awareness. We enforce mandatory cyber hygiene across government, protect critical infrastructure, and run regular national exercises. Our hybrid state cloud further enhances security and interoperability. Lithuania ranks among the EU leaders in cybersecurity capacity and digital public service maturity. And because digital transformation must include everyone, we invest in digital skills for seniors, rural communities, and vulnerable groups, ensuring that AI empowers rather than excludes. Thirdly, AI in digital public infrastructure must never become a tool for surveillance or discrimination. Our approach is grounded in human rights, democratic values, and international cooperation. We firmly believe that technology must serve people, not the other way around. Lithuania proudly promotes Vilnius Convention, the world's first legally binding threat on AI adopted by the Council of Europe. It sets baseline global standards to protect human rights, democracy, and rule of law in the AI era. We encourage partners to join and advance this milestone effort. Domestically, we're establishing the Lit AI Center, a national hub that will unite computer capacity, high quality public sector data, and interdisciplinary experience. Its mission is to drive secure, responsible, and human centered AI innovation across public administration, health, security, and green transformation. But no country can do this alone. Safe AI in digital public infrastructure requires shared responsibility. Lithuania continue working within the EU, within the OECD, UNESCO, the Freedom Online Coalition, and partners worldwide to strengthen transparency, accountability, and rights-based governance. Dear colleagues, governing AI in digital public infrastructure is not only the technological task, it is institutional and ethical one. It demands clear standards, resilient systems, and shared values. Right by design, resilience by architecture, and inclusion by policy. Lithuania stands ready to advance an open, secure, interoperable, and human-centered digital future together with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for those remarks. And finally, we are honored to welcome His Excellency Harry Bowij, Ambassador at Large for Artificial Intelligence and the Special Envoy on AI for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. A seasoned diplomat, he has decades of experience in international law, multilateral diplomacy, and advancing human rights-based governance in emerging technologies. Mr. Ambassador.
Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear partners, it's a great honor to join this coalition conversation along distinguished leaders from Estonia, Switzerland, Lithuania, and so many committed partners from government, civil society, and industry. As we discuss safe and responsible AI in digital public infrastructure, we're reminded that this is not merely a technical debate. It is a debate about public trust, about democratic legitimacy, and ultimately about the relationship between governments and the people they serve. In the Netherlands, this understanding shapes our national approach. We are clear on one point: AI must strengthen public values and not erode them. That means human rights, transparency, accountability, and inclusion are not optional add-ons. They are foundational design principles. And we see digital public infrastructure as more than systems and code. We see it as social contract technology, infrastructure that must be transparent, contestable, and governed in the public interest. This vision of social contract technology also means that governance cannot be left to governments alone. It must be accepted by society. We need a genuine multi-stakeholder approach involving civil society, the private sector, techno communities, academia, and affected communities from design to deployment. Only by bringing these perspectives together can we anticipate risks, embed public values in practice, and build the trust and legitimacy that digital public infrastructure requires. The Netherlands used this approach in setting up several DPIs, including our COVID response app. At the time, algorithms used in public services must be explainable, auditable, and always embedded in human responsibility. Efficiency can never come at the cost of dignity and fairness. But we're also realistic. No country, not even the most technologically advanced, can shape the future of AI governance alone. Earlier this year in Davos, Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke about the collective strength of middle powers in a fragmented global order. His message resonates clearly in the AI domain. When countries that share democratic values and commitment to public interest act together, they amplify influence and their ability to set norms rather than simply adapt to them, such as through the Council of Europe's Framework Convention on AI, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. This insight matters deeply for digital public infrastructure and for our cooperation with partners in the global south. Many countries that are already leading through modular, inclusive, and resilient DPI systems built for real society needs. The Netherlands does not see the global south as a testing ground, but as a source of innovation, a source of governance, and a source of leadership. We are grappling with these policy challenges just as you are. Indeed, as countries all across the world are. We continuously develop and refine our policies and programs, learn from the experiences of others, and actively share our own practices in the spirit of mutual progress. And this requires coordination between national and international efforts. Our national algorithm register now includes public information on some 1,350 AI systems and algorithms submitted by over 320 public authorities from all levels of administration, and providing transparency for citizens and businesses on how these systems intersect with their rights. And at the same time, we're committed to international cooperation that focuses on algorithmic transparency and accountability from design to deployment. Inclusive, human-centered government that leaves no one behind, fair procurement, and regulatory practices that reward trustworthy AI, and capacity building partnership that strengthen local agency and ownership. Our ambition is clear: to help build interoperable frameworks, shared standards, and durable partnership that allow all countries, large and small, to harness AI for the public good. By acting together with clarity, shared values, and mutual accountability, we can ensure that AI and digital public infrastructure truly serve our societies. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished guests, for your incredible opening remarks and for setting the stage for all of us today. I think a central theme we heard from these four champions of multi-stakeholder and multilateral efforts to support rights-respecting artificial intelligence is that technology should serve humanity and not the other way around. With that, I would like to open up our panel discussion and introduce our four panelists. Pratik Weger is Head of Programs and Partnerships at the Tech Global Institute. Juan Carlos Lara is the Executive Director of Derechos Digitales. Mr. Norman Schultz is the Deputy Head of Unit Coordination Staff for AI and Digital Technologies in the Foreign Policy Office at the Federal Foreign Office of Germany. And finally, Alex Walden, Global Head of Human Rights for Google. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you all in the audience for being here as well. We'll start with Pratik. What mechanisms exist to review decisions made by AI in public services, and how effective are they?
Thanks, Zach. And I think probably going to build off on some of the remarks that distinguished speakers made earlier today, and make the point that a lot of these conversations, even though the title today is within AI, I think we also sometimes need to take a step back, and sometimes the process of accountability, etc., begins even before the deployment phase, and then how you sort of go on through the life cycle of it, right? And so there are a couple of basics in there that we've also seen from the experience around the world, which is The first thing is that we have to be sure whether we're actually addressing a problem or are we papering over cracks when we're thinking about an intervention this way, and also looking at the local context and the regional context in terms of how a particular country is functioning, what and this is very Kranzberg first law, right? That technology is neither good nor bad; it's neutral. Is not is it neutral because it takes on the shape of the system in which it's deployed. And so if you have historical patterns of discrimination, if you have limited state capacity, if you have various form of power asymmetries, regulatory capture, and political economy issues, that's something to sort of keep in mind, right? And then from there you go on to, do you have the regulatory frameworks in place? Do you have data protection, functional data protection regimes in place? Do you have what form of right to redressal and what type of right to protection do you have from being subject to automated decision making, and those sort of things? And in terms of then being able to you go into the question of, before deployment, do you mandate impact assessments and algorithmic impact assessments and that? And once this is deployed, what sort of checks and balances do you have when someone is at the receiving end of a bad quality decision or a poor decision, right? How do your grievance redressal mechanisms work? Because that becomes very important. Sometimes we've had, for example, here instances where people who are receiving welfare assistance from the government have been labeled dead, right? And they were then caught in this bureaucratic nightmare or bureaucratic loop to declare themselves alive. And this 100-year-old gentleman actually had to take out a wedding procession to prove to the local administration that he was alive, right? So you need to also make sure that you have these uh, you know grievance redressal mechanisms functional, because you know mistakes are going to be made in these sort of systems. They are deterministic, they're non-deterministic. So what happens when something goes wrong? And that again ties back to the point of the existing context as well, right? And you need to have, I think there was a point about procurement made earlier. You also need to make sure that uh, you know the procurement process follows due process, rather than sometimes where you have people just coming together and volunteering and building up a system, which may function well in some cases, and that's fine. But in terms of long-term durable sustainable processes that aren't fragile, you need to have those processes built in. And there are other things that people could explore with things like uh, participatory design and making sure that the community is involved in the design process and civil society is involved in the design process, and in terms of even actually red teaming it in some cases, right? Where you're trying to identify the edge cases and the boundary conditions before you actually roll it out at population scale. And so you have those sort of systems that we could think about. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratik. In the interest of time, I think we had initially designed 2 questions for everyone. We want to make sure we have some time for Q&A, so we may just do 1 question for each of the panelists. JC, over to you. What lessons from the Global South can inform AI deployment in DPIs elsewhere?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am J.C. Lara from Derechos Digitales. We're a non-governmental organization working at the intersection of human rights and digital technologies in all of Latin America. And as part of that work, we have been working on these issues mostly through one of our programs that is called AI and Inclusion, by which we have been studying in several countries in the Latin American region what the deployments of algorithmic systems have been by governments, by of public authorities. And that has been a very good opportunity for us to learn how things are being done, but also the kinds of things that we highlight as the common ground between high-level principles and international standards, as well as what happens within the Latin American region. And I think to the question you're proposing, Zach, about the lessons, I think there are some things that are particular to the Latin American region, whilst others are very much common to the rest of the world. And we may be in a situation in which the states in which we find ourselves as global South economies, as global South societies, with regards to high level principles, might differ. However, we still have some common challenges. And I wish to highlight here something that was also mentioned during the high level presentations, which is the right respecting principles for DPI from the Freedom Online Coalition. Um, so one of the lessons that we have from the work that we have conducted in Latin America has to do with transparency frameworks that we might see as focus on algorithms, but that might be insufficient if they do not extend to the data infrastructure on which algorithms depend. And in many cases, there is a normative infrastructure of public transparency that can be leveraged towards that kind of information being accessed. However, in the enforcement of that type of regulation is paramount. Another thing that we have found that can be useful throughout the world as well has to do with auditability and the level of engagement of civil society, of academia, of non-governmental experts in the process of formulation and deployment, but also before that in the decision-making part of the deployment of digital public infrastructure, which is to say, what we have found is that there are many instances of exclusion of certain groups throughout the deployment of technical capacities. However, the point at which that exclusion happens is not necessarily within the algorithmic systems, but rather before, in political decisions. And the lack of involvement of affected communities or potentially affected communities, or in general of the public in how systems are designed, has more to do with the politics behind how a system is implemented and for what, and what is the reason behind the deployment of public resources than just the algorithm itself. And finally, on accountability, and I think this is one of the lessons that we have to learn by ourselves in the Latin American region. In Latin America, we share a human rights system, the Inter-American human rights systems, which has obligations for states, which has mandatory aspects for states that are being developed by jurisprudence. However, to the point to which each country has managed to implement those things into their legislation for access to information, for equality in the provision of services, for economic, social, cultural rights, or for, in general, for the respect of fundamental rights such as the right to privacy, is something that is continuously demanded from state by organizations like mine. And I think that is something that is common throughout the world, but those standards are rising, and therefore their implementation to DPI is a big part of the challenge that we have today. The principles from the FOC are useful in that sense, and operationalization is the challenge that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. Alex, I may turn to you next. I'm going a little bit out of order, but yeah, sorry about that. I think we've heard a lot about moving quickly and innovating, but also questions we have about how quickly that innovation happens and what that does to safety and trust. So the question for you is, how are you at Google and how should others be thinking about balancing innovation with safety, accountability, and public trust regarding DPI?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think so. The way we think about it at Google is really from the highest level. We talk about being in our responsible AI work and our work developing and deploying AI, we talk about being bold and responsible together. So bold in our innovations that we will seek to launch things quickly, responsible in that we will be doing that in a manner that is responsible, both the development and deployment and the ongoing monitoring of the services that we launch. And then together, because it's important for us to continue to engage with government alongside civil society, academia, researchers, et cetera, to make sure that people understand what the technology is and that we are getting appropriate feedback and continuing to iterate. So that's how we think about it from a big picture. I think, a really important piece of that work for us is transparency. And so that's transparency in terms of governance, ensuring that we have a robust approach to governance and that we are being transparent about that. We produce an annual responsible AI report that talks about all of the ways in which we do that across the company. And that's also transparency to the people and consumers who are using our products. And so that means that in the products, when you're using it, it's important for us to think about what cues someone might need. For example, in Gemini, we're very clear that Gemini might have errors or hallucinations, and we do things like put the link to in the response to a Gemini prompt, we put links to the underlying information where that came from so that someone can check on it. And so that's ways we're thinking about being transparent in a product for users. And the other piece, and so like that's something that government should reflect in the way that they're thinking about being responsible when they're procuring and using and deploying AI as well. And then last, I think a huge opportunity where there's opportunity for collaboration between private sector, civil society, communities, and government is around AI literacy and making sure that the public who can and should use this technology and that can and will benefit from it understand how it's working for them, and ways that they need to be also informing accountability where it might go wrong and where they need to address risks.
Thank you, Alex. That's great to hear. And Norman, final question, since you are the sole government representative, we're curious as to how multilateral coordination, including groups like the Freedom Online Coalition and the frameworks that the FOC has, how can that strengthen safe and responsible AI governance?
Oh, that's a big question. Can I have another hour to talk about that?
Sure, the organizers over in the back.
Okay, sorry. I'll try to be very brief and concise. No, I mean, we have heard already from our distinguished speakers how multilateralism can help provide for safeguards so that governments are using AI in a responsible way. I would just like to draw your attention not only to the 2025 guidelines on digital public infrastructure that has already been mentioned by the distinguished speakers, but also to 1 year before, the FOC has also worked on what's this exactly called? A joint statement on responsible government practices for AI technologies. And the joy and the good thing about this statement is that the US, if I remember correctly, was the lead drafter of this statement, and I found this in the archives of the DOS. So I have a feeling that they are still bound by this, and if not, I will remind them. Well, obviously. But well, this leads to your question. It is said that the US has decided to leave the Freedom Online Coalition because the Freedom Online Coalition is let's say a safe space for like-minded governments to talk about how do we bring our principles, our values into this new modern world of technology. So I would say we are like-minded, we are partners, we are sort of friends, and where we can discuss freely on how do we bring that about. It is also a marketplace of how do we do things effectively if we want to enforce principles like or these requirements like an impact assessment before we procure AI technology. Are there any good examples? Or also bad examples. We learn much more from bad examples. It's a pity that the ambassador from the Netherlands has left us. I'm sure he has more important things to attend to at the moment. But they had this Toeslagen affair. It was maybe not AI, but a digital system that automatically would search for people who are not trustworthy, who and then you have to the government asked back for money that they gave them as a subsidy for having and raising children. A good thing altogether, but taking it back created a lot of social upheaval in the Netherlands. They have done this quite well. They have effectively solved this problem. But this is one example. And if we have this kind of multilateral platforms and communities where we can exchange those types of examples. That is the perfect way to learn and to make public services better for the people and ensure that we have all the values or the human rights that we want to promote and project included and secured. Maybe that's a short way.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we could definitely talk about this for much longer. I think we have time for one, maybe two questions from the audience. So if anybody has a question, could you please raise your hand? Sure, the gentleman here in the second row. Please, here in the second row, please. And please just be concise, so as we're running out of time. Thank you.
Yes, hi, good morning, and thank you so much for all your lovely remarks. My name is Sanhit. I work on questions related to technology governance and institutional readiness. And one theme that I've been seeing for the past 2 days now come up a lot is explainability, auditability, and also now this nature of wanting to have these AI models be auditable. And I imagine it's easier said than done, because if it were so easy to be done, then we would not be discussing it so much. So since the panel has someone from Google and also people from the government, I wanted to understand what the actual challenges are from both a policy level and from a technology level. Why is this not being able to, why are we not able to execute these models which can be actually explainable, easily auditable, contestable, so on and so forth? So yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think, Alex, do you want to give a quick stab at it?
A quick stat. So, I mean, I think we spent a lot of time yesterday across a multi-stakeholder conversation talking about, in particular, explainability. I think that is certainly something that we've been committed to since the beginning. But obviously, and as we see here at this conference, there are varying levels of technical expertise and different ways people are engaging with the technology. So it's, I think there is generally an understanding across all stakeholder groups, including private sector, that we want explainability. We want to deliver that to everyone, including our users, but sort of getting to the point where anyone who's using our product understands what it is, how it's developed, and how they might be encountering an error or not is less simple. Certainly that's true when you're a deployer also, and you are less close to the technology and you're dealing with a broader user base, and those people are citizens seeking public benefits. So it's just complicated. I think there is general agreement, though, that that is what we're aiming towards.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you again. It's a great question. I'm sorry we are out of time, but I'd be happy to speak to you after the panel. I think it's a great point, and Norman, thank you for mentioning the DPI principles that the Freedom Online Coalition published in December of 2025. Earlier in 2025, the Freedom Online Coalition also published a joint statement on AI and human rights. Those two documents combined bind member states of the Freedom Online Coalition to create legal and regulatory frameworks that specifically allow for auditing of DPI systems, as well as a right to remedy for automatic decision making. So we look forward to continuing to work with all of you, as well as the governments from the Freedom Online Coalition, to making sure that digital public infrastructure utilizes AI in a safe and responsible manner. Thank you so much to all of the panelists today.